The Healing Revolution, Embracing Our Whole Selves in a Fractured World. Imagine a world where your scars, both visible and invisible, aren't something to hide, but rather the very source of your power. A world where healing isn't something you do after you've achieved success, but the foundation upon which all meaningful success is built. When I recently sat down with Katrice Peterson, a visionary whose work has transformed how Black professionals approach healing and authenticity in spaces not designed for them, I was profoundly moved. Katrice isn't just a thought leader, she's a soul stirrer who has helped thousands reclaim their wholeness in a world that often demands fragmentation. Her approach to healing as the cornerstone of excellence, rather than an afterthought, has literally saved careers and lives. She shared something that stopped me in my tracks. We've been conditioned to compartmentalize our pain while striving for excellence. But what if our wholeness, not our fragmentation, is actually the cornerstone of true excellence? That question has haunted me ever since. We live in a culture obsessed with productivity, with pushing through, with making it happen at all costs. The modern workplace has become a temple of efficiency where we sacrifice our humanity at the altar of output. But at what cost? The cost of our mental health, our spiritual well being, our very sense of who we are. The statistics are sobering. Black professionals are experiencing burnout at unprecedented rates. Many are leaving corporate America altogether, not because they lack talent or ambition, but because the environments demand they leave crucial parts of themselves at the door. As Katrice Peterson eloquently puts it, success without healing is just another form of trauma. Let that sink in for a moment. Success without healing is just another form of trauma. I've been thinking about Jacqueline Mitchell, who pioneered a movement centered on intentional healing for Black professionals through her Let's Get This Glow Up initiative. Mitchell recognized something profound. Generations of Black leaders had been conditioned to compartmentalize trauma while striving for success in environments that weren't designed with them in mind. The conventional wisdom said push through the pain, hide your struggles, never let them see you sweat, smile through the microaggressions, laugh off the dismissals, work twice as hard for half the recognition. But Mitchell had a radical proposition. What if wholeness, not sacrifice, became the cornerstone of excellence? What if we redefined professional advancement to include healing as a non negotiable component? I remember speaking with one of Mitchell's program participants who told me, for the first time in my 20-year career, I don't feel like I'm leaving half of myself in the parking lot before I walk into the office. She described how she'd spent decades performing what she called emotional acrobatics, contorting herself into shapes that made others comfortable while slowly losing touch with her authentic self. The results of Mitchell's approach were transformative. Participants reported not just greater fulfillment at work, but improved mental well being across all areas of their lives. By making space for their full humanity, including the painful parts, they discovered reservoirs of creativity, resilience, and leadership they hadn't known they possessed. Imagine that freedom, imagine that power. But here's the uncomfortable truth: healing requires vulnerability. And vulnerability feels dangerous, especially for those who've been historically marginalized or mistreated. When you've been hurt for being yourself, the idea of showing up even more authentically can feel terrifying. I'm reminded of Letitia Clark, who founded the Pink Parachute Diaries podcast after witnessing talented Black women lose not just their jobs, but pieces of themselves in workplaces rife with inequity. Clark noticed a disturbing pattern. Brilliant colleagues would begin to disappear emotionally, long before they were handed literal pink slips. The fear was palpable. Many faced a terrible choice: speak up and risk reinforcing negative stereotypes, or remain silent and slowly erode from within. This impossible dilemma led to profound isolation. Clark's solution was revolutionary in its simplicity: create a platform where stories could be told without shame or censorship, a space where connection and validation through shared experience could flourish. She told me about a woman, let's call her Maya, who had spent 15 years building a stellar reputation at a Fortune 500 company. Maya was passed over for promotion after promotion while watching less qualified colleagues advance. When she finally gathered the courage to address the issue, she was labeled difficult and not a team player. Within 6 months, she was gone, not just from the company, but from her field entirely. She felt too broken to continue. That's the story we don't talk about enough, Clark told me. Not just the pink slips, but the soul damage that precedes them. Through the Pink Parachute Diaries, Maya found her voice again. She connected with others who had walked similar paths. Together, they began to heal, not by denying their experiences, but by owning them completely. When we tell our stories, Clark says, we're not just healing ourselves, we're creating possibility models for others who thought they were alone in their struggles. This is the power of community built on authentic storytelling. It breaks the cycles of isolation that keep us fragmented and afraid. But what about the systems themselves? How do we transform workplaces beyond mere diversity quotas to forge environments where Black excellence is celebrated systemically rather than tolerated superficially? This is where Trinine Davis enters the picture. Davis developed strategies focused on transforming workplace cultures from the inside out. Despite increased representation efforts, she recognized that systemic barriers persisted. Many professionals still experienced racism or felt pressured into hiding essential parts of themselves at work. Davis advocated for something revolutionary: personal branding rooted in authenticity alongside collective advocacy against institutional bias. This dual approach empowered individuals while simultaneously challenging organizational norms head on. I'll never forget what Davis told me about her own journey. I spent the first decade of my career being whoever they needed me to be, she said. I had a different persona for every meeting, every boss, every situation. I was exhausted, and worse, I was ineffective. The day I decided to show up as myself fully, unapologetically, was the day my real impact began. Organizations that adopted her blueprint saw increased retention rates among diverse staff, as well as more inclusive leadership pipelines. Her interventions have preserved careers previously derailed by exclusionary practices and helped countless individuals reclaim their ambitions. Authenticity isn't a luxury, Davis insists. It's a strategic advantage, both for individuals and for the organizations wise enough to foster it. What these three remarkable women, Mitchell, Clark, and Davis, have in common is their understanding that healing isn't separate from professional achievement. It's the very foundation of sustainable excellence and leadership. For Black professionals, especially, intentional healing, mental, emotional, spiritual, creates the conditions for showing up fully in all areas of life. When we prioritize wholeness, we discover that we don't have to choose between our well being and our ambitions. In fact, the former fuels the latter in ways we might never have imagined. But let's be honest, this work isn't easy. It requires confronting painful truths, both personal and systemic. It demands courage to stand in your full humanity, even when others would prefer you make yourself smaller, less complicated, less real. As Katrice Peterson reminds us, every challenge, including life threatening health crises like multiple open heart surgeries, can become a source of power and inspiration. By facing our deepest fears and sharing our authentic journeys, we empower ourselves and others to do the same. Think about that. Even our most frightening experiences, the ones we never choose, the ones that leave physical and emotional scars, can become well springs of power when we integrate them into our whole selves rather than compartmentalizing them away. I'm struck by how revolutionary this simple idea really is. In a culture that worships at the altar of curated perfection, choosing to embrace your whole story, especially the messy, painful parts, is an act of radical self love. And in a world that profits from your self doubt, loving yourself completely is a political act. The question becomes, how do we begin this journey toward wholeness? How do we start healing while still navigating systems that weren't designed for our success? First, we must recognize that healing isn't linear. It's not something you complete and check off your to do list. It's an ongoing practice, a commitment to showing up for yourself with compassion again and again. Second, we need community. As the stories of Mitchell, Clark, and Davis demonstrate, building supportive networks through honest storytelling helps dismantle the isolation that keeps us fragmented. When we connect with others who see us fully, who neither minimize our pain nor reduce us to it, we create space for collective growth. Third, we must redefine success itself. What if success isn't just about what you achieve, but about who you become in the process? What if it includes your mental well being, your spiritual groundedness, your capacity for joy and authentic connection? As Katrice Peterson puts it, when we are comfortable in our own skin and connect with others who see us fully, we create space for collective growth. This is the revolution we need, not just in corporate America, but in our relationship with ourselves. A revolution that places healing at the center rather than the periphery of our ambitions. I stand before you today, not just as a speaker, but as someone on this journey with you. The path to wholeness isn't a straight line. It's messy, it's challenging, and sometimes it hurts like hell. But on the other side of that pain is a power that no external validation could ever provide. So here's my challenge to you. What part of yourself have you been hiding? What wound have you been trying to outrun? What would become possible if you embrace that part of your story instead of compartmentalizing it away? This week, take one small step toward owning your full story. Share honestly with someone you trust. Write down what makes you unique, scars and all. Let yourself be seen, not despite your wounds, but with them fully integrated into the masterpiece that is you. Because the world doesn't need more fragmented people achieving hollow success at the cost of their souls. It needs whole humans bringing their full brilliance to bear on our collective challenges. Your healing isn't selfish, it's necessary. Your wholeness isn't just good for you, it's good for all of us. And your story, all of it matters more than you know. When you show up fully, you create a ripple effect that touches everyone around you. You give others permission to do the same. And in that authentic connection, we find not just individual healing, but the seeds of collective transformation. The healing revolution starts with you right here, right now. Are you ready?